Get in, nerds. We are playing Burden of Command. We are at Vosges, deciding which storytelling sequence we want to have. I'm just going to read you this once again. The scent of fresh cooking sets your stomach to rumble as you enter. Sergeant Layton's mess team occupies most of the ground floor, and having managed to stoke a roaring fire. Even now, they're trying to boil, broil, and fry enough hot grub for the men on the line. Ham, beans, and potato hash are all getting the treatment. The other part of the place has been stuffed with radio gear. You watch for a moment as Sparks, Corporal Sobieski, begins the laborious effort to get the company set up to receive. As expected, the radio signals are lost amid a crackle of distant thunder. Prepare for Major Rathburn's arrival, +1 prestige, skip to the briefing. Briefly speak with Sparks, possible trust gain, extended scene. Or talk with Sergeant Layton and get a hot dinner, possible combat fatigue reduction, extended scene. We'll go for the combat fatigue reduction with Sergeant Layton. The field kitchen radiates an intense, welcoming heat. The scents that spill out are a rhapsody of possibilities, even though you know everything came out of a can. Or maybe not. You watch Sergeant Layton crack an honest-to-God egg atop a griddle. The man has been with Nickel Company since Morocco, and it shows. There's worry lines around his eyes and little white scars on his hands. Back at Enzio, everyone was at the front. Hey, Captain, Sergeant Layton says as he looks up from his work. Who gets the hot chow first? Second platoon, they're pushing the Germans. Second platoon reduces combat fatigue. Third platoon, they're trying to flank. Third platoon reduces combat fatigue. Or weapons platoon, they have to carry a lot more. Weapons platoon reduces combat fatigue. This is cool. I haven't been paying as much attention to which platoons have the fatigue as I would like. We'll go with third platoon. I've been doing a lot of pushing with Dearborn. Well, sir, I'm sure Lieutenant Dearborn found a way to outfox the Jerrys again, Sergeant Layton says before he rouses the carrying crew, drawing those men away from drying their spare socks. The last thing to be stuffed into Marmite cans are a mess of formerly powdered eggs. The yellowish mass is a sharp contrast to the real thing. As you watch, Layton sizzles up pieces of the actual eggshell and then strategically places them atop the congealed yellow ooze. Do I want to know? Sarcasm -1. That is the neatest culinary trick. Verbosity +1. I don't get it. Trickness +1. Rub my chin thoughtfully. Verbosity -1. There's only one answer, and it's to say the longest thing possible. That is the neatest culinary trick. Thanks, Sergeant Layton says. My father would do that for us kids. If you saw the shell, you started thinking the powdered stuff was actually the real thing. The grub tastes better, and no one has to drown anything in ketchup. With a flourish of a spatula, he slides the egg onto an assembled sandwich that practically oozes happy calories. For you. No sense in our captain missing dinner. After a day out in the rain, the warm dinner is unbelievably satisfying. In a war zone, this is a luxury. Image courtesy of Austin Murphy. Maybe he is related to Captain Murphy. By the way, apparently there's also a famous soldier named Murphy in the 3rd Division. Not necessarily related to the Cottonbalers, though he might be in the Cottonbalers. But my naming my guy Murphy was not intentional to that. That was just the name that I picked. Finish with a good cup of coffee. Have some coffee, or it's delicious. I'm gonna finish with a good cup of coffee. This character is definitely a coffee addict. The distant cough of an engine approaching from up the road catches your attention as you finish up. A convoy, marked by dimmed headlights, rounds the bend, creeping through the darkness like blind men holding each other's jackets. The supply truck has already been around today, same for the field hospital, and Graves' registration doesn't work in the dark. As the hooded blackout headlights grow closer, the lead vehicle resolves into a rumbly van fitted with radio antenna. Last seen at Anzio. By the way, I really, really like this soundtrack. Whoever made this OST happen, frickin' props. This is rock solid for a rain ambiance, high vibes, low energy scene. 10 out of 10. The vehicle parks by the side of the road and the others follow, churning up more mud. The doors open and people spill out like it was a trolley car at 9 a.m. Cigarettes are struck despite the risk of snipers. In the brief glow, you're surprised to find men and women in civilian dress among the uniforms. Each civilian wears a wide armband sporting a French tricolor and the bold black form of the Cross of Lorraine, the emblem of the Maquis. That's the French resistance. The French have arrived. They're as green as grass. Glad they're armed and willing. I'm glad they're armed and willing. A soldier with a gun is a soldier with a gun, and far better than none. Major Rathburn steps out of the passenger side of the vehicle and surveys the terrain. When he sees you, he strides over. Evening, Captain. Nice little place you have. Hate to impose, but you know how it is. He waves a hand at the open doorway. Let's get inside. I'll fill you and your officers in on the specifics until the other captains arrive for the generalities. The upstairs of the farmhouse has bits of furniture that survived the grenade blasts. Here a table, there a chair. 2 beds have been pulled out into the main area. Several of your soldiers, their bare feet discolored and blistered by incipient trench foot, sleep on hay-stuffed mattresses. A dozen socks dry on a clothesline strung before a small hearth fire. Beneath the flickers of a battered brass oil lamp cast over a badly gouged table, Major Rathburn spreads out a set of smudged maps that show more white than black. You can barely pick out the line that marks the main road to Saint-Dié. A woman steps forward, a fierce-eyed figure with a Luger on her belt. One arm is adorned with old scars within a sleeve of a well-worn gray work jacket. Captain, Major Rathburn says, this is Marie Ringenbach, a local marquis? Maquis, she corrects. Hey, we've been seeing this lady's art forever. Maquis, she corrects. Her accent is none of the song you've become accustomed to during your drive north. Instead, her words hold a rough edge that rises from her throat. I'm the translator for the local Groupe Franc. I've also lived near Haute Jacques for the past 2 decades. That's great. Can you fill out the map? Skip the conversation. Haute Jacques, tell me more. Optional extended scene. You know I'm going for that optional extended scene. Delicious water. Haute Jacques, tell me more. The hijacks? Haute Jacques is the height you're currently on, she says as she takes up a nearby pen. Without pause, she steps to the map and begins to draw in elevation marks. The High Jacques doesn't have many villages, but it controls the only eastbound road of Saint-Dié. The Germans know you must take this place. That's why they've been digging in. There's a crossroads not far from here, Major Rathburn says. If we can grab that, we can force the Germans to retreat or risk encirclement. Most times, I'd rather we infiltrate a company or 2 behind them and then plow them under at dawn, but that won't work here. Will they fall back? What was it like living under the Germans? Major, are the Maquis going to fight alongside us? Let's talk about tomorrow's advance, move on to the briefing. What was it like living under the Germans? Terrible, as you imagine, Marie says. They took our men, they stole what they wished, and everything had to be in German. But we have never been German, and never will be. She takes a deep breath. There were also other troubles. There's a clatter from the kitchens below as the cooks ladle out the first hot chow in nearly 2 weeks. What other troubles? The Germans suspected everyone of treason, Marie says, and scoffs before returning to the elevation lines of the map. As if you can commit treason against someone invading your homeland. There were stops and searches all the time. My missing arm was useful then. They were often wary about searching the stump. Perhaps they thought I was contagious. Wooden walls creak as the wind gusts outside. Rathburn cocks a suspicious glance at you at the overhead timbers that he then shares with you. So I think there's a lot of conversation behind each of these. So I'm going to exhaust the second one and then go to the others. Tell me about the Gestapo. Those thugs? You won't find them here, Marie says, and lets slip a dark chuckle. They scuttle like rats at the first crack of a rifle. They wish to hold the whip, not feel the lash. Wasn't there a report about, Major Rathburn considers, they had a meeting place near here, didn't they? From time to time, a Gestapo stayed at the Crossroads Hotel. A change of scenery from their headquarters, Marie says, and gestures absently off to the east. We had plans to visit them while they slept, but then you came along. I doubt you'll find them there now, or anywhere else in France. The gray rats and their pet mice have probably fled all the way across the Rhine by now. The soft thump of bare feet is heard from the main road as a soldier adds another log to the smoldering fire. The wood begins to snap and crackle almost at once. Marie, distracted by the noise, redraws a line. Will they fall back? Eventually, at least. Division thinks so, Major Rathburn says. Every time we come close to enveloping them, they run or surrender. But only to you Americans, and then only if they cannot fight, Marie says as she drafts a small legend in the corner. The Nazis say that Alsace is German. They also say they will defend Germany to their dying breath, which may be the only way to shut them up. Rain patters softly against the wooden shutters beneath the blackout curtains. Marie lets slip a small smile at the soothing sound. Are you sure about their defensive positions? No, not all of them, Marie says as she sketches out a few bunkers and trench lines. They bring in laborers from the other side of the country and then drive them back out when they're done. But even so, they told us that the Germans are worried as they have not been for years. An electric tang fills the air as someone, probably Sparks, activates the company radio, but only static can be heard. Rathburn lets out a soft chuckle and clears his throat guiltily afterward. I think his name might actually be Rathbun. I thought it was a typo the first time I saw it, but now that I'm seeing it a second time, I'm thinking I might have gotten it wrong. You sound as if you know them well. They invaded 4 years ago, Marie says, the strokes of her pen harsh as she details a slash of particularly thick forest. First they were mostly a nuisance, wanted us to speak German and act German. So, a few weeks later, we raided their garrison and burned the damn thing to the ground. Very German, but they were not amused. The clump of fresh boots are heard down below. Major Rathbun glances at the stairwell and then asks Marie quietly, "Almost ready?" "Major, are the Maquis going to fight alongside us?" "A fair question, Captain," Major Rathbun says, looking up from the map. "They are to be employed primarily as guides. Oh, I'm sure they'll get to shoot at the Germans if the opportunity presents itself, but make no mistake, they're too valuable to be used otherwise. We are willing to die for France," Marie notes, "but it is better if the Germans do this." Footfalls on the stairwell. Marie does not look up. "I'd like to talk about tomorrow's advance. Move on to the briefing." "Alrighty then," Major Rathbun says. "Miss Ringenbach, how's that map?" Marie shrugs and signs her work with a flourish. "My officers should arrive shortly," extended scene, or focus solely on the map, skip to the actual briefing. We'll do the extended scene once again. "My officers should arrive shortly." Stern steps in, pounding his boots outside before he heads straight up the stairs. 3 men from his platoon limp in after him. He then directs his soldiers to peel off their boots by the fire in the main room. Afterwards, Stern and Major Rathbun shake hands like trading thunderbolts. "Heard you played some ball," Major Rathbun says to Stern. "Which university?" "I joined up right after graduating high school, sir," Stern replies. "College has to wait." "Well, if you ever consider Idaho's finest, I've got friends who'll give you the guided tour of Teddy Roosevelt Lane," Major Rathbun says, his grin infectious. Stern's combat fatigue -10. "We should demonstrate trench foot risks to the French." Graphic image warning. "We should discuss trench foot with the French. Make a mental note for later. Stick to the discussion at hand." Yeah, let's do the trench foot thing. You time for a graphic image? Oh, man. Oh, that is brutal. Lieutenant Dearborn enters with hardly a murmur, separating from his 3 chosen men to let them dry off however they like. He then presents himself to the major. "Sir," Lieutenant Dearborn says, his VMI ring practically gleams in the lamplight as he manages a parade ground salute. Marie scoffs softly at the stage display. "I'm just a major, son," Major Rathbun says. "Save the pomp and circumstance for the brass." "I shall keep that in mind, sir," Dearborn replies, and that seems to settle it. Crisp footfalls precede Lieutenant Rao's arrival with his picked men. They fall out on his command, seeking dinner, a fire, and a nap, in that order. Rao himself exchanges a few quick words of greeting with Major Rathbun that might as well have been scripted in advance. Then Lieutenant Rao deviates with an apology. "We were delayed by a Frenchman who believed I was an infiltrator owing to my accent and a mistaking of apple pie for strudel." Speaking of which, "We were delayed by a Frenchman who believed I was an infiltrator, owing to my accent and a mistaking of apple pie for strudel. And in any case, Sergeant Barnes and Corporal Willows were convincingly American enough to dissuade them after a delay." Marie gives Rao a wary look, followed by a little shrug to herself. Lieutenant Thompson is the last to arrive. Not unusual given the busy day he's had. Though his feet drag, he sees his men off with a joke and a grin before he strips off his rain-sodden overcoat. A flash of lightning is followed by a distant peal of thunder. "Let's get down to it, gentlemen," Major Rathbun says after he introduces Marie. "Intelligence has tracked 4 German battalions to this area. Half of them are Gebirgsjäger?" Rao offers in flawless German. "Yeah, that's the one. Mountain troops. The other two are indicated as special employment. Half of them are Gebirgsjäger, half of them are special employment. Penal battalions, Marie explains. Her lips twist in a bitter scowl. The scrapings of the bottom of the barrel, Lieutenant Dearborn notes, or perhaps even the floor beneath. The penal battalions are filled by those who would otherwise be in jail for crimes even the Nazis couldn't ignore, Marie says. Others were insubordinate, committed theft of army property, or were otherwise involved in the black market. But it is likely that few of these men, Gebirgsjäger or Besondere Verwendung, have ever seen the Wolf of War. That's not actually, it's Verwendung. V is in German. It is likely that few of these men have ever seen the Wolf of War. They're well equipped, though, for their guns still have packing grease on them. The Nazis are criminals, whether they've done jail time or not, Stern says, and if they don't know how to fight, that's all the better. I'd rather take my chances against a greenhorn with a new weapon than an old soldier with a 50-year-old piece of junk, Major Rathbun says. He's not cunning because he's old because he's cunning, Stern remarks. True, Major Rathbun replies, and looks to you. We won't be able to flank the crossroads, but both I and K companies will be attacking to the north. Furthermore, elements of 442nd will be fighting in the south, so the Germans may not reinforce readily. Enemy support is... There's nothing to be seen. No artillery, no more crates of ammo, Marie remarks amid the Major's pause, but there are rumors that fortress units have deployed their heavy machine guns ahead. The MG-08, Rao considers. The water cooled with low rate of fire, but they also do not have to swap out barrels. Just so, Marie agrees. And word has it that General Field Marshal von Rundstedt has taken a personal interest in this portion of the line, but he is unlikely to personally review the front. What's our support? I have a request additional support in exchange for prestige. What about mines? My officers should ask questions while they can. I'm just going to say, what's our support? Artillery and tanks where you can use them, Major Rathbun says. Air support is all socked in, of course. It would be difficult to employ them in this terrain, Dearborn says. One of our former lieutenants had rather harsh words to say about the quality of the fire support he received in Mexico. Oh man, in Morocco is what I should have said if I didn't just completely turn off my eyeballs for a second while we were in the middle of a briefing. Too much hearts of iron. I'm too used to there being a civil war in Mexico. Alternate history, burden of command when. Just kidding. That's probably not gonna happen. Well, it might. We'll see. We'll see how things go. Anyway, I'm not jonesing for it, is what I'm saying. I'm happy to see more historical stuff. All right. What do the Germans have? We're going into woods. Having a little something extra could be nice. In exchange for prestige. You know, I'll get all the prestige I need winning the battle. I have a request. Of course, Major Rathbun says. Ask. Just strolling through the forest tells me the Nickel Company is going to need some help. More mortars. We'll need them against the trenches. Legend of 81mm mortars. You captured machine guns would be nice to have, reinforced by 3 MG-42 guns. Can another unit draw off the enemy, divert enemy forces? Interesting. Let's go for the captured machine guns. Lots of opportunities to sow confusion when the enemy gets fired at by their own weapons, Rathbun considers. And to be honest, we got plenty of the things lying around. May I suggest allowing me to inspect them before the transfer, Captain? Rao asks you quietly. I don't know the new model, but I trained on the MG-34. I understand the more recent version is quite similar. There seems to be no reason to say no to the expert. Besides, Sergeant Washington likes having someone appreciate his artificer work. Artificer work. I don't know if the technical pronunciation is artificer or artificer. I came up saying artificer, but that's from role-playing games. Make a pitch for additional support. I don't think I'm going to need additional support. What about mines? A truck delivered several crates forward 2 days past, Marie indicates. Perhaps these were mines, though where they put them is a question. Assume the main road is mined, like always, Rathbun suggests, though if the crowd said to do a hasty job of it, your men might be able to figure out where they've been digging. What do the Germans have? Make a pitch for additional support. No more support requests to move things along. What do the Germans have? No tanks, Rathbun says, then looks to Marie. Is that still true? They have only infantry, machine guns, and a few mortars, she replies, as she extracts a fresh cigarette. Even though you might see Germany from the mountaintop, they can't or won't bring anything more to this fight. Forest makes for good defensive ground. The forest makes for good defensive ground. Infantry can move through it quickly, Rao observes. Armor and heavy weapons would only slow them down. Marie nods at that and lights another cigarette. I'm not going to make a pitch for additional support. I think I can... Extra mortars is not necessarily going to be super useful to me. My officers have questions. Plus from prestige, no more support requests to move things along. The men have questions and not long to ask them before the other company commanders arrive to turn this into a battalion meeting. Thompson asks about tomorrow's weather, no doubt worried about air cover. The forecast is cloudy but breaking fair. There may be fighters overhead after all. Rao is silent, apparently satisfied that the briefing covered everything. Battery expects to hash out the details with you later. Dearborn draws Rathbun and Marie into an extended conversation about the morale of the German forces, especially the Pinot battalions. However, there isn't much more to be learned without firing on the enemy. As usual, Stern is worried about ammunition. Major Rathbun assures him that trucks will bring forward ammo regularly. The mission sees the crossroads before turn 20. The men suffer no more than moderate casualties. The captains of Item, King, and Love companies arrive one by one, displacing your officers. The last to arrive had the furthest to travel, your liaison with the 442nd RCT, Lieutenant Richard Matsuoka. He is nonetheless eager to participate. His unit having dug the 1st battalion of the 141st Infantry Regiment of the 36th Infantry Division out of a bad situation the day before. Heck of a sentence. Your peers settle in, examine the maps, and slowly begin to hash out the details of tomorrow's attack. It is after midnight before things wrap up. After a few hours fitful sleep, you awaken to put the plan into action. Alright, so... Whoa. Alright, that's our objective. We got 20 turns. This is going to be interesting. A long, thin battle. Tanks! I appreciate this game being conscientious about reminding me about my armor after I was absolutely goofy last time. Alright. That is the end of the interactive fiction, and that's just about half an hour. We're getting close. And you know, we've had quite a few long episodes, so I ain't shy about closing it out a little early. Let me see. How do I want to do this? I think we're going to go through the woods. I think going through the woods is probably how we're going to do it. You know me, I always go through the woods if I can, because there's trees and the enemy doesn't get to shoot at me when they can't see me. So that's my general strategy. I'll figure out more specifics later. Anyway, that is all we've got for this episode, my nerds. And it'll probably be a bit before I record again. It's been a very productive day of recording episodes, but this is all there is. I've had fun. I hope you all have had fun, and I will see you on the other side.